It was the worst disaster ever of World War I at sea. It involved 2 ships. And would cause the death of 1,198 innocent souls, and would eventually cause the entry of America into World War I. 1 torpedo. Two explosions. "18 minutes of pure terror." And what was the effect? We'll be discovering that today. Tonight, our story is the sinking of the RMS Lusitania. It is May 1st, 1915, and in New York Harbor, sitting quietly, is the majestic ocean liner of Cunard, RMS Lusitania. Built in 1907 for the Cunard Line, Lusitania was the biggest ship of her time, along with her younger sister, RMS Mauretania. When these two came out in 1907, they were the biggest ships of their time and also the fastest. Lusitania held the blue ribbon until 2 months later, when Mauretania would capture it from her. Her younger sister would keep the ribbon all the way into the 1920s. Lusitania, even though Mauretania was faster, Lusitania was by far most popular with the passengers. And rightly so, as she was one of the most beautiful ships in the world, as she had splendid interiors. She even had elevators on board, a new technology in the face of ocean travel. She is captained by William Thomas Turner, a veteran of the seas. He had captained Lusitania many times before, along with Mauretania and the newest four-funnel liner in the Cunard, Aquitania. Now, Turner would command Lusitania once again. However, in this time period, things were not going so well. The First World War had just broken out only the year earlier, and now, into its second year of fighting, many casualties were being lost on both sides. However, the battle didn't just occur on land, but also by sea. Earlier in the war, Britain had decided to make a blockade around all German ports, not getting any supplies to Germany. Germany overcountered this with a new weapon, the U-boat. It was basically a German submarine, but this time the submarines would be used to their advantage in the most deadliest way possible. German U-boats would attack many enemy ships and would sink them. Mostly, they would warn the crew that their ship would be sunk, and would give them time to escape before the ship was actually sunk. However, Winston Churchill, the military leader in Britain, made a decision that would change history. His idea? Any merchant ship now sailing from Britain to the battle, now sailing from America or somewhere else to Britain, they will be carrying secret guns on board, hidden in boards, and if a German submarine was spotted on the surface, they will be subject to attack. Germany countered this with a threat. It declared any British or non-British ship in the war zone, except a German ship, will be subject to attack and destroy without warning. This warning, however, came too late to save 1,198 lives. But during her construction stages, Cunard made sure that in the case of a war, Lusitania would be ready. When built in 1907, Lusitania was built with a secret watertight compartment that would be designed to carry ammunitions, and any machinery was hidden below the waterline. Even a little-known fact is that Lusitania was in fact carrying guns hidden behind ropes. None of the passengers knew about this, though, and Lusitania was actually scheduled to be turned into an auxiliary cruiser. However, earlier that same year, Captain Doe, the former captain of Lusitania, got pretty paranoid because he wouldn't enter Liverpool without giving his message into the secret code, and would not enter without an escort. This meant that Doe had suffered from stress, and was taken off Lusitania's command post, and Turner was instead the new commander, and what will be the final commander of Lusitania. On this trip, Lusitania is carrying two very famous men for very famous reasons. Alfred Vanderbilt, a very famous American businessman traveling to Europe. He was the richest man on Lusitania, and rumor has it that he once was going to sail on the Titanic in 1912, 3 years earlier, but canceled at the last second. Now, he was on the second most beautiful liner in the world. The second richest man and most famous on board Lusitania is Charles Frohman, also an American. He is a theater host and was one of the first ever people to host shows like Peter Pan and etc. to many of his audiences. He is also traveling to Britain on this trip. He, along with Vanderbilt, are certain that they're on the safest ship afloat. And rightly to think of her in such a way, Lusitania is designed to withstand any torpedo hit and can outrun any submarine. Only on the surface can she be spotted. However, she is too fast and too big to be sunk by a submarine. Well, at least that's what the passengers say. However, the day Lusitania left New York, this notice appeared. Travelers intending to embark on the Atlantic voyage are reminded that a state of war exists between Germany and her allies and Great Britain and her allies, that the zone of war includes the waters adjacent to the British Isles, that in accordance with formal notice given by the Imperial German government, vessels flying the flag of Great Britain or of any of her allies are liable to destruction to be those waters, and that travelers sailing in the war zone on ships of Great Britain or allies do so at their own risk. This was made by the Imperial German Embassy, and lists all the ships that are contended targets for Germany. Lusitania was one of them. As I said earlier, any British ship was subject to attack by any German submarine. However, Lusitania was the prime target for Germany. The passengers knew this, but didn't worry. It would be a big, big mistake. At 12:20 p.m., May 1st, 1915, Lusitania embarks on her 202nd crossing from New York to Liverpool in England. She is carrying over 1,959 souls aboard. However, things didn't go according to plan. Just as Lusitania was leaving port, 3 German stowaways were found on board Lusitania. They were put into the pantry until further questioning when they left Liverpool. Another thing was that Lusitania was carrying a secret cargo. When Lusitania left port, she was carrying over 1,000 cartridges of guns, ammunition, and shrapnel, ready for the war in Britain. So it was true. They did put ammunitions and contraband on board this luxury, innocent ocean liner. None of the passengers knew about this, and it would be a big mistake to come. Lusitania's final departure was actually captured on film. This is one of the last known footage of Lusitania on May 1st, 1915. Most of these people you see in this this film on board Lusitania will be dead in 6 days. This is the last known photo of RMS Lusitania. The same day Lusitania set sail from New York, another ship set sail from her home port, this time in Germany. It is the German submarine SMU-20 under the command of Captain Walter Schwieger. Her mission: to sink any ship entering the British Channel to Liverpool. She, like Lusitania, is also bound for Liverpool, but for a different reason. Captain Walter Schwieger knows that Lusitania is a vulnerable target, but to the days to come, he doesn't know if he'll be able to catch her. He'll soon find out. The sailing goes smoothly for the first couple of days. Ian Holborn, a professor on board Lusitania, would later say, "It was a very calm voyage, and everything was nice and peaceful. Little talk of a German submarine trying to sink us." However, Ian Holborn and the other passengers and crew on board Lusitania would not know that their fate was being decided. A lifeboat drill had been carried out on day 6 of the trip, May 6th to be exact. In the likely event they will be needed. They will be needed very shortly, I am afraid to say. May 5th, 1915. U-20 stops the schooner Earl of Latham, a schooner carrying some bacon. However, as the rules said in the case of war, all ships must be sunk. So, after disembarking Earl of Latham's crew, U-20 sank her. However, the torpedo jammed in the tube. This caused U-20 to sink the schooner with her deck gun. It would not be the only ship she would sink on this voyage. The next day, May 6th, Schwieger spots the SS Candidate. Candidate's captain attempts to outrun U-20. However, her deck gun fires on the bridge of Candidate. She is ordered to stop, and once learning of her cargo, the captain of Candidate reluctantly orders his crew to abandon ship. This time, U-20's torpedo clears the tube and doesn't explode, and it later sinks SS Candidate. The survivors was rescued by the Lannery, and the message was later passed on. They hoped to pass it on to the Lusitania. However, for some reason, Lusitania never got this message. That same day, Schwieger spots the SS Centurion, also a freighter. Impatient to learn the exact name of the ship, Schwieger orders one torpedo to be fired, hitting Centurion under the foremast. Her crew of 44 abandoned ship. U-20 surfaces to put the Centurion down with one more torpedo. That's 3 ships U-20 has sunk. She will gain a 4th victim before the end of her voyage. Centurion, Earl of Latham, Candidate, you'll be joined soon by the largest of U-20's victims. Meanwhile, Captain Turner persuades Lusitania on through the voyage. He is still wondering, will a German submarine be able to meet them that night? Or probably the next morning? He doesn't know. But the Admiralty in Britain doesn't think much of Lusitania being an intended target, thinking that she is too big to be sunk by a German submarine. That night, Captain Schwieger congratulates the crew on Sinking Candidate and Centurion, and plays Wagner on the ship's gramophone. Then, he makes a decision that will change history. Instead of leaving for Germany, he will cruise the Irish Channel with his remaining 3 torpedoes. It is a decision that will change history. His first officer comments that Lusitania is ready to arrive the next morning. Schwieger sickly remarks, "Probably will give her a bloody nose." With a slight chuckle, they do their work. That same night, Captain Turner receives a message from the British Admiralty. Submarines off Fastnet Rock, but doesn't say when it was sighted. Turner decides to take actions. Lifeboats are put on duty, and any passenger wishing to smoke a cigar on the ship should not do so on deck, which means the ship would have an entire blackout. Many passengers are all concerned, including Vanderbilt and Frohman. However, as Lusitania steams through the night, she is entering the war zone, and, unfortunately, will meet her fate. What is just about to happen next, no one will never forget. May 7th, 1915. As she enters the Irish Sea, fog greets Lusitania. Turner is forced to slow down his speed. When the fog lifts, however, around noon, he then realizes he's not close to shore yet. He then decides to make a decision that'll seal the fate of Lusitania. Meanwhile, Captain Schwieger is on the surface, looking for another target, when he spots a ship in the area. He thinks there's a number of ships, thanks to the number of funnels. However, he then finds out it's one giant steamer. There's only one steamer that fits the description he is seeking: the Lusitania. Captain Schwieger's chance has, surprisingly and unfortunately, come. Schwieger immediately orders U-20 to dive. She dives quickly. Then he gives the order to fire one torpedo at the ship. He waits and waits. He thinks Lusitania will not be able to get in front of her. But in fact, Turner, when he gets closer to shore to get his bearings, turned Lusitania directly into the path of U-20. Schwieger cannot believe his luck. He immediately orders to fire one torpedo at the giant, innocent British passenger liner. But the officer in charge of giving that order does not give the order. He says, "There are 100 children and women on board. I will not do it." He is ignored, and Schwieger ignorantly responds, "Fire!" The order is given. U-20 fires the torpedo. The torpedo is heading directly into the path of Lusitania. All can Schwieger do now is wait. Lusitania had moved because Turner wanted to get bearings to make sure he was at the right spot. Many of the passengers were pleased they were finally entering Britain. However, it didn't come. The lookouts are looking into a nightmare. Leslie Morton is a lookout on the Lusitania. He is looking throughout the sea. Then, suddenly, he spots something through his binoculars. Bubbles, beginning to appear in an odd shape, heading directly into the path of the Lusitania. Morton's mind thinks of the impossible. "Two torpedoes closing on the starboard bow!" he cries. Turner makes evasive action. On his starboard, he cries. But it is too late. The torpedo Schwieger fired had hit Lusitania directly below the bridge. A spout of water, steam, and black dust arose somewhere behind the forward crow's nest. Lusitania's fate has been sealed. Then, Lusitania begins an immediate 15th list to starboard. Suddenly, there's a second, much louder explosion. The ship is shaken violently. Water explodes into the boiler rooms. Many of the men are drowned instantly. Passengers begin to run for their lives as Lusitania begins to take on water very quickly. She is listing starboard. Quartermaster Johnson attempts to try to beach Lusitania. However, she's not responding. She has lost air pressure. They cannot close the bulkhead doors. Lusitania is doomed. The lifeboats are the first priority, but the ship is still moving. Captain Turner orders the lifeboats to be swung out, but not to lower them just yet, until the ship has slowed down enough. Passengers are not taking this though, and are rushed into deep panic. Charles Frohman is last seen on the stern of Lusitania. Deep within the second-class areas on the ship, Vanderbilt is last seen giving his life belt to a pregnant second-class woman. He and Frohman are never seen again. When the ship does slow down with the lifeboats to be launched, things don't go according to plan. Lifeboats begin to topple over. Passengers begin to scream down into the sea below. Captain Turner cannot believe what he is seeing. Lifeboats are crashing everywhere, crashing on top of lifeboats. In all, the 48 lifeboats on board, only 6 were successfully launched. Within the first 6 minutes, Lusitania's forecastle was already submerged. She is sinking fast. As water begins to rise over Lusitania's forward well deck, Captain Turner gives the order to abandon ship. It's every man for himself. But he stays on the bridge of his mighty vessel. Explosions are heard deep inside Lusitania. However, during the course of the sinking, the ship actually began to bottom out a little bit. Her list steadily became less and less. However, in the final moments, Lusitania's list begins to increase rapidly. Passengers are now looking for the highest points on the ship, but it is no use as Lusitania sinks beneath the waves. Passengers watch in horror. A 6-year-old boy who was having a picnic on the island of Fastnet Rock could see Lusitania actually sinking. Lusitania stood no chance as she sinks beneath the waves. An explosion is heard every single time the funnel submerged. Passengers run for their lives and swim, only to be dragged down by the great ship or crushed by falling lifeboats. 4 minutes after the torpedo strike, the power went out. People were trapped in the first-class elevators, the boiler rooms, the cabins. Those below stood no chance of surviving. Those who did had to fight for their own lives. Then, Lusitania sinks beneath the waves. From the course of the torpedo strike to her final appearance, it took just only 18 minutes to sink. Schwieger cannot believe it, but there are no orders to go and collect any survivors. He leaves. It will be another 2 hours before rescue finally comes. Schwieger will later die when the U-boat U-88 had struck a mine, killing all on board. U-20 would be sunk herself after being scuttled in 1917. Of the 1,959 people aboard the ship, there are 761 survivors. Many died of exposure or were trapped deep inside the great Lusitania as she went down. Amazingly, Turner survived the sinking. However, he was heavily criticized, and due to a cover-up, he was put initially to blame for the sinking of Lusitania, though it was not his fault. It was the British own's fault for putting ammunition inside of a civilian passenger liner. And remember the 3 stowaways I told you about earlier? They all died in the sinking, never survived. But the thing is, what caused the second explosion that sank the Lusitania? This one was greater and had more damage. The ammunition exploded? No. The torpedo had struck directly behind the steer cargo hold in a coal bunker. It is either a boiler rupture or a coal dust explosion that eventually caused the second explosion that sank Lusitania. No doubt about it. What was the outcome? The torpedo had struck Lusitania at the right place at the right time. She was doomed from the start. Charles Frohman, or Alfred Vanderbilt were not among the survivors. Ian Holborn survived along with Elvis Dolphin, a child who he befriended during the voyage, who he saved himself. Her 2 friends didn't survive, however. Over the years, there will be many films made of Lusitania, starting from 1918 all the way to 2007, when Terror at Sea, The Sinking of Lusitania came out. The Lusitania will never be forgotten, and her survivors will be remembered. Barbara McDermott was the last survivor of Lusitania to die. She died at age 95 in 2008. Turner would later go on to survive another ship under his command, the SS Ivernia, in 1916, almost a year after he lost Lusitania. Turner himself died in 1933 after suffering cancer at age 55. Immediately following the disaster, cries rang out. "Avenge the Lusitania!" It was cried. America, even now there were 128 Americans aboard Lusitania. 123 died. America was furious and declared war against Germany in 1917. It would take until 1919 when the war was finally over, thanks to Britain and America. But if it wasn't for Lusitania, the war would have ended very differently. And now we have the Lusitania to thank for having America getting involved in the First World War. RMS Mauretania, Lusitania's youngest sister, would be scrapped in 1935, along with Titanic's oldest sister, RMS Olympic. Lusitania now lies 300 feet down at the bottom of the Irish Sea, a wreck of the former glory she once was. Her superstructure is all but destroyed, and only her hull remains. Over the years, she has faced incredible damage, but she's remembered by those who survived, and those who had family members who didn't, and the burial of her victims. Her port-side propeller is now at the National Museum in Liverpool, a stark reminder of the great British ocean liner. Robert Ballard, Titanic founder, agreed he would never see such a beautiful ship as Lusitania sink so quickly. 4 minutes longer than the RMS Empress of Ireland, but way too fast. A 780-foot ship sunk in only 18 minutes. And we have this last photo to remember Lusitania. And today is the 104th anniversary of her sinking. A stark reminder of the reason America was brought into the First World War. Thanks to photos and film, we can remember Lusitania to what she once was. And now, thanks to this video and many others on this channel, enjoy the scene Lusitania in her full glory as she was, from 1907 to 1915. Many thought a second torpedo was fired at Lusitania. This would have been overkill. It was just an eternal explosion caused by either a boiler rupture or a coal fire. I am Michael Benitez signing out on the 104th anniversary of the sinking of the RMS Lusitania.